But let me invite the chairman of the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption, Professor Itsey Sagay, SCN, to give his welcome address. Please give him a round of applause.
His Excellency, the Acting President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, SAN, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, the Honorable Justice Walter Onowe, the President of Senate, represented by Senator Chukwuka Utazi, the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Abubakar Malami, SAN, Justices of the Supreme Court, Justices of the Court of Appeal, Chief Judges and Judges of the High Courts, members of the legislature, members of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. We are gathered here for the next 2 days to engage in a national dialogue on corruption, our national tragedy. My good friend, Professor Akin Oyebode of the University of Lagos, once described Nigerian corruption in the following terms, and I quote, "In the case of Nigeria, corruption has attained such proportions that it can now be said to threaten the very existence and survival of the nation. Humongous sums of ill-gotten wealth have found their way to safe havens and vaults located in various countries of the world, such that there is a lot of merit in the view that corruption should be considered a crime against humanity, with all the consequences arising thereat. Accordingly, the Hydra-headed phenomenon warrants collaboration amongst all states in order to bring it to heel." End of quotation. I once stated at a gathering, a much smaller one than this, in 2010, that when 2 or 3 Nigerians are selected to carry out a project, the first thing they do is to share the bulk of the funds for the project, leaving a paltry sum to carry out the project. The guest speaker on that occasion disagreed violently with me, making me wonder why he was so personal, so concerned about my remarks. The mystery unraveled a few weeks later when he was appointed chairman of a major parastatal in which there were numerous projects just starting up. Corruption is omnipresent in Nigeria. High and low office holders, public and private sector, the executive, legislative, judicial sectors, customs, immigration, police, academic, the civil service, everywhere. What is extremely disturbing is the fact that the people's attitude to corruption has hardened. There is no longer any fear of consequences. Bribe is demanded brazenly with a sense of entitlement. So too has insensitivity to misuse, abuse, and waste of our common patrimony, even in these lean times. The recklessness with which public officers spend public funds is insensitive to the point of insanity. Yes, I mean that. The level of insensitivity has become pathological. Only a few months ago, Nigeria was on fire because members of the National Assembly bought cars costing 30 million naira each with our money in order to carry out so-called oversight duties during this period of financial drought and famine. We called them well-deserved names at that time. We said they were cruel, they were inhuman, they were malevolent, and so on. But my dear friends, you will not believe that with all that's going on, with all we are going through as a country, the NDDC, the Niger Delta Development Commission, which in my view is another name for uncompleted projects, has bought over 70 cars recently. Of these, 8 of them are super Lexus Jeeps costing 78 million each, and 10 are Land Cruisers costing 63 billion naira each. The money was taken from funds meant for infrastructure, water, housing, hospitals, schools, without conscience, recklessly, without a thought for the wretched people of the Niger Delta. These huge sums were plundered from their allocations from the federal government. And yet the managing director was ironically complaining, as reported by the Nation newspaper of the 6th February 2017, that the NDDC lacks funds to execute projects. I was in debt up to the tune of 1.2 trillion. What an irony. Let me give another example. I'm not going to go in details because this is about customs, and we have gone to see the Controller General of Customs and the senior management. I don't need to repeat the details. But what I want to say about customs is this. Nothing has happened. There's been no difference in customs since May 29, 2015. No difference. If you go to Tinkan Island, business is the same, as if nothing has happened. Just to give you a very little example, I have a lot here, but this paper has been written, so I need not read everything. But I give just a little example to give you an illustration of what is going on. At Tinkan, the scanner has packed up. They don't scan anymore. They do physical examination. Recently, when a relation of mine wanted to clear his goods, they now charge him a fee for transferring from scanner to physical examination, even though they had no scanner in the first place. That is fraud. That is brazen fraud, and there was no basis for that. Every day when we open our newspapers, we see all sorts of shocking things. I don't know whether Nigeria read about $151 million in a bank without any known owner. We even read about $99.2 million hidden away in a remote village somewhere. And every day, more and more are unfolding as if to overwhelm us completely. Now we have to ask ourselves what the problem really is. We are definitely overwhelmed by an epidemic of kleptomania. But do we also have a collective psychiatric problem? Why should a person loot what he cannot spend in 10 lifetimes, whilst exposing the rest of the population to misery, hunger, poverty, wretchedness, and even death? I think one of our panels should consider this element, whether we are dealing with a medical problem. I want to refer briefly to what is one or two things happening in our judiciary that I'm not happy about. By Section 396 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, cases must be heard from day to day. And where this is impracticable, they could be adjourned for 14 days, 5 times. Furthermore, where the defense raises a preliminary objection to the charge or information, such objection should be considered along with the substantive issues and a ruling made thereon at the same time of delivery of the judgment. In spite of these clear provisions, some judges are still granting adjournments running to months, and worse still, adjourn their cases to give a ruling on a preliminary objection instead of giving the ruling at the same time as a judgment on the substantive criminal matter. What is more, which provides that an application for stay of proceedings in respect of a criminal matter before the court should not be entertained, some courts still adjourn in order to await the outcome of an interlocutory appeal. This is clearly illegal, and if you ask me, I would say it should be regarded as an act of misconduct. And we lawyers, of course, are contributing to what is going on. We have a new system, a new profession for delaying the speedy trials of criminal cases. Our lawyers now can decide, the defense counsel can decide to cross-examine one witness for 1 month. And if the judge does not take control of his court, cross-examination of all the witnesses can take 1 year. Unfortunately, in 1 or 2 cases, judges have not taken control of their courts. And this has gone on to the embarrassment of the country. Meanwhile, Nigerians are complaining. How many convictions have you achieved? How many cases have you concluded? These are the reasons why this is so. Judges need to take control of their courts and put their feet down. If a lawyer is going on for hours and hours, you give him 1 hour more. Let him go up and complain of fair hearing. In conclusion, in view of what I've just complained about, I intend to propose to my committee that we should hire a group of young lawyers to monitor cases going on in the various courts and take note of the issues of adjournments for one reason or the other. And we'll compile this and send it to the National Judicial Commission. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, for the next 2 days, you have the floor, not only to discuss and dissect every aspect of the crime of corruption, its meaning, causes, sectoral occurrence, and so on, you must also come with solutions for the resolution of this national scourge. Let your suggestions be simple and practical to enable all the relevant agencies apply them towards the eradication of this threat to the Nigerian survival, this veritable crime against humanity. In conclusion, I want to refer briefly to the recent public demonstrations against the present administration under the pretext of demonstrating against hardship brought up upon us by their very mentors and sponsors. The very mentors and sponsors of these demonstrators. These groups, consisting of rented characters and those who have lost elections or whose federal appointments were not renewed, went about pretending that they did not know those responsible for our catastrophic impoverishment. These characters belong to 2 groups. Those who are agents of the looters 2010 to 2015, I want to divert the attention of the ordinary Nigerians from the true culprits of our recession and misery by transferring it to a hard-working, selfless administration which met sand rather than cash in our treasuries. The second group are naive, unthinking ones who cannot make the slightest connection between cause and effect. Is Buhari to conjure wealth from air? Is he God who can say, let there be funds and there be funds? Why did the demonstrators of 6 February not start from Otuoke? Have they forgotten that the Niger Delta Avengers have destroyed our oil resources and capacity? That we are producing less than 1 million barrels a day at a period when the price has plunged from $110 per barrel, as it was in the days of Jonathan, to just over $30? So why all this pretense about calling for good governance, which is in fact what we now have today, when they looked on with love and adoration while the national wealth was being plundered away and shared by their sponsors and mentors in the previous government? Why is it that Nigerians hate the truth? If we cannot even be honest to admit that the last government's corruption, wastefulness, and misgovernance is the cause of our present hardship, how can we join hands with the present government in salvaging our economy and promoting our social development? Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me stop here for now. Have a very productive 2 days. Thank you.